Hey guys, it's Michelle, TangerineBliss, and thank you for connecting with me on YouTube today. I'm talking about my miscarriages, and it's really hard to talk about, but I feel like it's so important to share. Feel free to reach out to me here in the comments section if you want to, or even on Instagram. You could send me a direct message. It's at TangerineBlissMama, and I'll be sure to include a link. So today I'm talking about when you've already found out that you are miscarrying, you have that decision about how exactly you're going to miscarry. There are pros and cons to each one, and I'm just going to tell you how I decided and how that happened. So the first way is just super hands-off approach. I'm not going to do anything to aid this. Maybe some kind of tinctures from my midwife or something like that, but I'm just gonna let my body do its thing, and it might take weeks, but my body should miscarry all of it. To be honest, when I realized that I was miscarrying, I realized that I didn't want it to take weeks. I didn't want it to take just days and days and days and days of bleeding. And that was just a personal preference. So that was kind of an option that I just crossed off early on. But I also knew that I could take Cytotec or something similar from an OBGYN, or I could have a DNC or a DNE, depending on what they call it or how they're going to do that, how far along you are. And that's obviously with a doctor in the hospital. So after my first miscarriage, well, when I found out about my first miscarriage, I knew I wanted to try again, and I knew I didn't want it to take a really long time. And one of the things that I read, and you just need to talk to your healthcare provider about this, but one of the things that I read was that depending on how far your pregnancy has progressed, if you just choose to miscarry at home, there's a little bit more likelihood that not all of the tissue will come out, and you might need to see a doctor and have this DNE, DNC procedure anyways. And I knew I did not want to go through all of that at home only to then have to go to the hospital anyways. That was like a big thing for me. I did not want to have to do both. So just from what I read, like on forums, I mean, there was not a lot of information out there. And unfortunately, people don't talk a lot about miscarriage experiences. So I watched some YouTube videos, but I mean, some of them were more specific than others. And I just still felt like I didn't get that much of a perspective on what like the Cytotec route would be like. So I was like, man, I'm just gonna have surgery, get it over with. I will know that everything is 100% out of my body and I can just heal from it and then move on. And I was being like super logical about the whole thing. Like I know that my baby, it's just like chromosomes that didn't multiply right. And I just kept thinking over and over again about how it would be fine the next time. And I just really was like trying to just reassure myself this was just like a one-off thing. I probably will never have another miscarriage, and therefore I just want to get this over with. And so that was really what made my decision. I'll tell you in just a minute about how I made the decision after my second miscarriage, or for my second miscarriage. About my DNC, I went to a really great doctor, and he was very, very kind. He happened to be a Christian, which is meaningful to me, and I felt like I was able to connect with him. He didn't actually end up being the one to do the procedure for me because it was something about this. Maybe his schedule changed, or in the time frame I needed the procedure, he wasn't even going to be available. So I was kind of like bummed about that because I felt like I made this connection with him, felt like I trusted him, and then he wasn't even the one that like I saw that day that I went to the hospital. So I went to the hospital with my husband and with our toddler, and we had our oldest daughter staying at a friend's house for the day. We got there, and honestly, I was just so glad that I had one of my kids with me. She was there with me because she's super, super connected to me, especially, and she wouldn't have been happy staying at a friend's house all day. She would have been sad the entire day. So I was not going to have that. And it ended up being like a really nice little blessing of just having the distraction of like a cute little person walking around. So we paid in advance. They give us a little discount for that. It's like you pay in advance for the estimated amount, but there were like charges later that we got in the mail, like up to a year later, in regard to this surgery. It was really not cool. I actually just kept getting these reminders, like, here's another bill. Remember when you miscarried your baby? It's not happy. So we went, got put into our room, changed out of my clothes into the little, hospital gown. And I was just snuggling my little daughter, and, they put the IV in. I was really thankful that I was able to still have my husband there the whole time up until when they actually put me under anesthesia. And the nurses were so, so nice. I really appreciated their tenderness, because if you're miscarrying or you've already lost your baby and then you're about to have this procedure, this is like one of your worst days ever, Like, the last thing you want is a nurse who's like overly peppy, or a nurse who's not sensitive and caring. And I really appreciated the care that I got at the Virginia Baptist Hospital where I went. So yeah, they got me all set up, and they rolled me to the little room where it's like, I guess it's not triage, I don't know what they call it, but there's just like little partitions up in between, and there's like different people getting ready to go into surgery. And that's when I met the doctor who was going to do the procedure for the very first time. Fortunately, she was very nice, very approachable, very calm, reassuring. I felt like I was in good hands. That's important. Gave my husband my glasses, put the thing on. I think I counted down or whatever, and that was it. That was all I remembered. I woke up with tears like coming down my face. And I guess it's like a thing where sometimes, like, when people come out of like having general anesthesia or whatever it was that they used to put me under, sometimes you like cry, but I kind of felt like my body was like crying because like what I just went through, like I didn't realize, because I wasn't there like awake, but it's like my body knew, and I was just crying, and I just had tears just streaming. Maybe it was also like subconscious, but that was like how I woke up. I was just like crying. Everybody was really nice. They took me to a hospital room for recovery. And the first time that I talked to the doctor after, she let me know that I lost a lot of blood. It's like 1.6 liters, which is a lot if you think about like liters of soda. And that was like a lot of blood. And so, I was like white. as a sheet, you know. I was like, the color was out of my skin and I was not feeling so great, and I was recovering for a while, and I think I even slept for a while. Sorry, I'm like trying to keep it together for this video, but I was so thankful that my mom was able to come. And at that point, we weren't sure if like I would need to spend the night at the hospital, so if my husband would go home, be with the kids, and my mom could stay with me or whatever. But my mom, by the time my mom got to where we were, like after work, or maybe she took a day off, I can't remember exactly, but we met at my house, but they had me try to go to the bathroom, which is like obviously one of those things they want to make sure everything's working fine. And I went to the bathroom, you know, got up. Well, I'm sitting on the toilet. This is like TMI, but whatever. Sitting on the toilet, and the nurse that's there watching me, she's like, okay, go ahead and wash your hands now. So without even thinking, I just straight stood up, got to the sink. You know, I mean, they're like right next to each other, but I just straight stood up off the toilet at the sink, and then I was like, I don't feel so good. And I like passed out. So, you know, they have those little like call buttons or whatever in the bathroom. I'm sure that's, the nurse caught me and pushed the button and like waited, because when I came to, I was laying on the bed, opened my eyes, and there were like a lot of people around me. They're all staring down at me. I'm like, whoa, like I guess I just passed out. I asked the doctor about it later, and she said some people just have like a more sensitive body, where like some people could lose that much blood and not feel like as affected by it, but others will pass out, will feel like really horrible. It just depends on your body. So that was my experience with having surgery, the DNC. And I feel like on the one hand, everybody was really sensitive, really caring, but on the other hand, I lost a lot of blood and I felt really bad for like a week solid. I mean, physically drained, exhausted. Like for me, for my body, when I'm like building the blood supply up, it's exhausting and I do not feel like myself. The doctor had said, you know, they tested my hemoglobin levels and I don't know, maybe something else. And she said that if it didn't go back up enough, then they could just have me like have a blood transfusion. Like I could go back into the hospital if I still felt really horrible or if I passed out at home. I decided to go ahead and go home, recover, and I didn't like feel any worse. But that's not the best experience ever. I don't know. One advantage of going to the hospital that I didn't know about until I got there, I think, was that they gave us the option of one of the local funeral homes in the area. They offer for free to cremate your miscarried baby or your stillborn child. You know, it's like this service that they offer, and we decided to go ahead and take them up on that. So I actually have my baby's, like, it's like the tiniest bit of ashes, like in this little thing. Sometimes I get it out and I've looked at it and just like thought about my baby, and it is really sweet to have this keepsake, and it's really meaningful, so I do enjoy having that. So for my second baby that I miscarried, I already knew the experience that I had with the surgery, and I decided maybe I didn't want to do that right off the bat. And also, it wasn't that far away from when I had my first miscarriage, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to be able to like keep having surgery after surgery. I'm not going to do that. If I miscarry again, you know what I mean? I was just thinking like this could keep going on. You know, I don't want to have a ton of surgeries. I thought it was just like this one-off thing, have one miscarriage and that'd be it. But I ended up having 2 in a row, and so I was there thinking through it again, and I knew I didn't want to have 0 doctor intervention because it could take a really long time for my body to miscarry. But I talked to my OBGYN about it, and you know, when we found out that we had miscarried, and we had more than one ultrasound that showed that, she wrote me a prescription for Cytotec, which is something that sometimes you may have watched it in another video or heard about it, but sometimes they'll give it to a woman to help start labor, or they might give it at a different point in time, like after you've had your baby. It just depends. I don't know all the ways that doctors use it, but one way that it can be used is to help start a miscarriage. And so I went to Target and I had my prescription filled, and a thumbs up to the CVS person at Target that day, because she was super like gentle and kind. I mean, they know what you're getting a prescription for, and I just really appreciated that, like, she wasn't like, have a nice day. It was just like she was just really sensitive, and I think she said like, take care or something, you know, let us know if you have any questions or whatever. And I feel like that was a good experience, because every step along this process, you're just hurting and you're grieving, and it's a big deal, you know. I got the prescription and I didn't want to use it that day. I waited until Saturday. It was Friday when I got it. I just waited a day, and we set up like one of those exercise balls, this big red exercise ball, so that because I read and I heard from my doctor, like different people have like different levels of cramping. I mean, you're having contractions when you're having the miscarriage. So for some people that's like really painful, and for others it's not so much. And I also had like these monster sized pads and just all kinds of stuff. And so I was like all set up in a room in my house and ready to miscarry. It's so weird, you know? Like, all right, I'm going to start this process now. A friend of mine told me that her doctor prescribed it and she took it orally. And she said that when she miscarried, it was like just like lots of little pieces. I know, I'm sorry, this is like all really TMI and it's a really sensitive topic. But my doctor actually prescribed it vaginally. So those little like circle white Cytotec pills were like stuffed them up in there like a tampon, and it took a while, nothing was happening, and like I said, this is TMI, but if you're watching this video, it's because you're wondering about it. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna share it. But so I think it was like maybe an hour or maybe less, and nothing was happening. And so like kind of like went back up in there, like try to push up in there some more. And after that, it did not take long. So, I mean, FYI, your fingers are only so long, and you apparently need to get it up in there pretty good for it to work. So I started cramping, and I started feeling like, okay, this is happening. And my husband kept the kids away. I told him like I would let him know if I wanted him. I mean, he gave me like some Gatorade and whatever I wanted, obviously. Get your mom or get your husband or somebody to be there for you, because you don't know what the experience is going to be like. So at one point, so I'm just like rolling on the ball back and forth, because like if you're in labor, like that helps things to come down. And yeah, so at one point I finally felt like I kind of pushed a little bit, like and it felt like there was something there. So I went to the bathroom and I checked the massive pad that I had there, and it was like, it looked a lot like a big clot. At about 9 or 10 weeks gestation, I couldn't tell. I couldn't see any little head, any little feet, any little anything. So that was what I found. And I did feel like it was like a good process for me emotionally, just being able to just like be present for it rather than be, you know, put under general anesthesia. But I mean, I would give the caveat that like my experience was very straightforward. The miscarriage, it didn't take like half the day. I mean, it was a couple hours, few hours, but that was it, you know. And I just took a bath after, and you know, just babied myself. My husband babied me, and I really like mentally and emotionally just was not thinking about my feelings until I was done with the actual like miscarrying process, because I really wanted to just be like able to just get through it. Just like, this is the task at hand. And so afterwards I cried and cried, and I journaled and I prayed. And I would say that overall, if I had it to do over again, I don't kick myself for having surgery after, you know, for my first miscarriage. But if I could make the decision over again, I would have just miscarried both of them at home. The doctors, they check your HCG levels afterwards, and they, you know, they take your blood and everything and make sure that you don't have any of that left in your body, which would indicate that there was still some tissue inside that needed to come out, because that can be a really bad situation. So, you know, they took my blood and it went back down to normal and everything. And I feel like it was kind of the best that it could have been. It's a really weird way of saying it, but using the Cytotec to miscarry at home, it went well as it could, you know. And I was in my space. I didn't have a bunch of strangers around. I got to listen to whatever music I wanted to, and just take it easy and relax as much as possible. So I guess if I had to encourage a friend one way or another, I would say that I would encourage her to try maybe to miscarry at home if possible. But that, you know, it's okay to take something from the doctor, like a prescription, like the Cytotec. Yeah, but I mean, it's a really difficult situation, and it's a really difficult decision. And so whatever you end up deciding, if that's why you're watching this video, you're like, how do I even think through this? That was just my experience, and I hope that you are able to have as best possible experience with this also. I'm really sorry if this is what you're going through right now, and I really hope that this video has been helpful to you. Not all of my videos are like this, but I'm just sharing my motherhood journey, you know. Some of that's fun and cute kid stuff, and some of that's difficult. And whatever the case is, I really hope that you leave feeling encouraged, and that you feel free to connect with me by commenting or by finding me on Instagram at TangerineBlissMama and send me a DM. But yeah, thank you for connecting, and hit like if this was helpful. In the next video, I'm going to talk about just like how I process through everything spiritually, emotionally, and I really hope that might be helpful to you also. So I hope that you tune in there, and see you next time.